I was telling my wife, I said, everybody thinks about the fastest growing company. That can be the fastest falling company.
What I want to talk about on today's call is the state of marketing, the power of focus, Facebook advertising, the best 3 sales questions, video marketing, the importance of faces.
This call is being recorded.
I think when you start with conversations about budget and finances and, whether that's personally or professionally, it can cause tension. It feels like you're being micromanaged. And I think at a company when you're not being micromanaged a lot and when you do hear a lot about growth, when you're on the Inc. list, like I was telling my wife, I said, everybody thinks about the fastest growing company. That can be the fastest falling company. Like the profit and the profit growing has this, layer under it that if it grows too fast, Jimmy likes to call it a house of cards, can happen. And what's scary is you start thinking about if you get to the point where you're too inefficient or too loose, or you kind of act bigger than your age. I took a note when you were talking, Jimmy, that you should aspire with your actions, but with your money, you should act accordingly, right? So I think, we want to always feel like we're building something that can be or is a rocket ship, but the fuel for those is expensive. And then, like Jimmy said, we're putting in premium fuel, overpaying most of the positions, better benefits than typically is allowed, pretty much as much or little work-life balance as people want. So it's good to get that reality check. You guys should do it for your own money. The company obviously is taking it super seriously at this point. Jimmy, there was a story that I think will drive it home a little bit. On the micro level, I think in each department, the answer to that question is very different. If you're asking marketing, how do they get leaner? The answer is, I think, a lot different than if you ask support or if you ask product. So I think we can think about each of those kind of separately. But I saw a press release from Keller Williams this week in the news, and they are now the number 1 company for sales volume of real estate. And that's a huge deal for them because they've always been known as having the most agents, but a lot of them were not great. They were average or didn't sell any homes or terrible. So if you go to the RE/MAX stuff, they always talked about productivity per person. How can we increase our PPP, they called it. And, Gary Keller took a whole different approach. He basically said, I'm just going to increase the P, the number of people. And then that right now, that math works. But at this point, yes, they're number 1 in volume. But if it takes twice as many employees to get there, the margins are obviously not going to be nearly as good. And the headaches are going to be twice as often because so many more people to manage. So I think that what I hope everybody can take away from just the idea of being more lean and mean and counting every dollar a little bit more closely is just that it should be exciting. I think that the more profitable the company is, the more profit there is for us to share, whether that's through our actions or some of the experiences for the employees Jimmy mentioned, or the more, tangible things like raises, bonuses, whatever those things may be. So, I think that Jimmy obviously made it pretty clear that there was a hiring freeze. I think that that's a perfect time to sort of look at how can we get lean. Let me give one example, Jimmy. I can't think of an example for everybody, but let me give one example of something Holly and I talked about yesterday. So the volume of time and work involved with uploading somebody's contacts to FUB, getting all the tags right, connecting all the lead sources, basically making sure that's working, etc. Collecting the CSV files required to do that in the first place. That is something that takes a ton of time. And, Holly is at the point where it's like, hey, the experience is suffering because we got one person and a 100-person backlog. And so, me knowing there's a hiring freeze, so, okay, another person's not an option. Well, my first thought was, gosh, we paid Dan and the FUB folks a lot of money. And if the kitchen's on fire, our partners should come maybe help us a little bit too. And if we're paying them a really large amount of money, we need somebody on their team doing that task. Now, that comes with a sacrifice, which is it won't get done as good as us. You know what I mean? And that's where you kind of suffer a little bit. Sarah, let me give you an example that came to mind, which is completely pertinent to sales. Because if you're at 70 sales for the month, I promise you that 20 of those people would have bought without talking to somebody in sales.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. Mm-hmm.
Like, and the other thing is John with the new sales page is putting the price a little bit more prominently. We can obviously look at that and judge it as it goes. But that's another example where, like, I'm a little nervous to do that. I know lead flow will go down. But if that increases the capacity of our team to sell better, because anybody they ever talk to again knows the price, and all of a sudden they're having 100% quality conversations with people that know the budget, even if those conversations go down, their time goes up.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like why wouldn't we try click here to get started? Mm-hmm. We've never done click here to get started, so we're going to try it, and it's just going to email you and say I'm ready. Here's my area. Please check it. Like you know what I mean? And so I think that there's a version of that in every department. That one I like a lot. Jimmy and I have talked about the product selling itself and like letting somebody, Yana and Leo, who we already employ, can build an experience for a lead where they can be in brain and then get shut out, and all of a sudden, like, we'd all just rather like throw them in there than start them with Tiffany. But we don't want to fire Tiffany. We want her to call more people. You see what I'm saying? I get excited when I see, somebody at the office, get excited and start picking Annette's brain about something she's doing on Instagram. Or when, people are sort of, when they're given the chance to know what the other person's doing, they seem to find it interesting. They seem to kind of bond over it, right? So, like, I think that breaking down the silos in general is good, especially with a fractured company geographically, with, all these different roles people do at the company. So my goal with that call, you guys, I need your help because I basically need the equivalent of like this month in marketing, this month in sales, this month in marketer. And I think you guys kind of understand what would go into like a monthly recap worth sharing staff wide. And then I basically need the month ahead, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to present all of that information for everyone in a semi-engaging, compelling, fun, quick-moving way. But I think it will help a ton. I think that people being able to quantify the different types of things that the teams are accomplishing, the same way that we want Steve to have certain reporting and Sarah to have certain reporting. Like, if I worked here and I was hearing that, the budget was tight, like, I would also like to hear that last January we had 44 sales and this January we had 71. Like, just that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that the people at this company love working at it. and they're actually interested in stuff that at most jobs people could not care less. Like they care, the people that'll never talk to the PR firm ever are excited that we have one, as an example. So I need a little bit of help. I know you guys have been updating Headway. I would call it a best of that. But what are the things, Holly, that you want every employee to know? Here's your chance. You know what I'm saying? What are the things, Steve, that the marketing team did that, is probably worth sharing with everybody at the company? And typically that list is not super long per department. Jimmy's big thing is, we pat ourselves on the back a little bit. We kind of look at the global stuff that happened the month prior, but we also put just as much energy and thought into kind of the month ahead. And I'm not going to read the marketing calendar, and Steve knows that. I'm not going to go off and say, every event we did and every city and how many people came, right? It's going to be, we tried this new thing. It went pretty well. Here's what we learned. We're not going to do it again. We're going to do it bigger and better like this. But people don't even know that Neil and Darren did 6 events in the last 10 days for small businesses. I want Wendy to know that. I want Julie to know that. You know what I'm saying? I want everybody to know about all this kind of vibrant activity happening within each department. So if you guys can help me out with, kind of the old school recap. I'm getting old school. I'm like, I need an email. Don't send me a fucking link to Headway. I need a simple email with the bullets of what you want the whole company to know about last month and what you want the whole company focused on this month. And then I'm going to, add a little bit of my 2 cents to each and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Hey, this is Chris. Thanks for listening to my call. If you enjoyed the call, please subscribe right now. Also, share the episode and use the hashtag #CallsWithChris. Every week, I choose a few people randomly to win a free signed copy of the conversion code, my USA Today best-selling book. You can also visit Curaytor.com. That's Curaytor.com to learn more about my company, which is the one I'm running during these calls. We help small businesses grow faster, and we've been featured recently by Inc., Forbes, Fortune, and Entrepreneur Magazine.